Welcome to the Great Ideas Podcast, where we explore many topics, including leadership, teamwork, relationships, business, politics, pop culture, health, sports, food, and anything else that's a great idea. I'm your host, Barry Moline. Today, we're talking with Kim McIntyre, CEO of Joyful Being Transformations. Kim is a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and most important, a big kid at heart. Nearly 25 years ago, she became a certified laughter leader, and since then has shown groups both large and small how to use humor and laughter to their advantage in business and in life. Kim teaches how to let go of stress and find your sense of humor amidst challenging situations. In the episode, Kim discusses the significant benefits of laughter in the workplace. We explore how humor can enhance interpersonal communication, job performance, and creativity. Kim shares stories showing how humor builds connections and improves resilience. We also discuss the evolving nature of humor, emphasizing the importance of being mindful to avoid offending others. Finally, Kim provides practical tips for incorporating humor thoughtfully and strategically in professional settings. It's a great conversation, and you're sure to learn a lot about reducing stress and improving workplace effectiveness. Let's get into it. Well, hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Barry?
I'm good, and I'm delighted to talk about laughter today, one of my favorite things to do. So, Kim, you're a certified laughter leader, and you've been you've have a lot of experience over 2 decades. And today we're going to talk about laughter for stress relief and laughter in the workplace. And what's the value of having laughter in the workplace and the benefits that it brings?
Yeah, so there's 2 main areas that it benefits. One is interpersonal communications, and the other is job performance. So in terms of interpersonal communications, it really is a connector. It builds connections and rapport and teamwork and all of that. And it's great for connecting, whether it's connecting with coworkers or connecting with clients, which of course everybody wants to connect with clients and make sales, right? So I will give you a brief story on that from the potential client point of view. So I'm at a home show. We need some work done on the house. So I'm walking around this home show, where everybody has booths set up and all the people in the booths want to sell you their free estimate or whatever, get you to come for their free estimate. And so I've barely talked to anybody. I'm walking around and then I come across this booth and it happens to be something we're looking for. Like my husband and I were looking for a new roof on our house. We desperately need one. And so I walked up by his table and this guy holds up 2 of those flimsy little bags, the free bags they give you with the little flimsy strings that makes it a backpack, and he holds up 2 of these like it's a gift to me, and he says, "Which do you want, Gucci or Prada?" And it caught me off guard. It made me chuckle. And, we started a conversation and we were laughing and building this instant connection because he made me laugh. And I know this stuff. I teach this stuff. It still worked on me, right? It still worked. And he was the only person there that day that I ended up signing up for a free estimate with. So it's really powerful in that way in terms of diffusing situations with humor, meeting challenges with humor, building connections with coworkers with humor. It can be really helpful. And the other thing, again, is job performance. And so there's been all kinds of studies that have been done that show that it helps with things like creativity and actually learning and absorbing things. Like one study showed that if they watched a funny video first, they were more likely to persevere in a hard task than the people who watch the non-funny videos, like things like that. And also,
it puts you in the mood.
Yeah. And perseverance is another one. So that people stick with that. Like they stick with the hard stuff. They absorb things better. And it's a very subtle thing that you may not be consciously aware of, and yet it still works. Like the sale guy, I was like, oh, I know this stuff, and it still worked on me. So yeah.
Yeah. So is it promoting endorphins in your system that make you feel good, and therefore you're up for the task that is before you. Is that the idea?
I think that's the idea. Yeah. And also like if you're in leadership too, they also show if you use humor well, and that's a big if, okay? If you use it well, your employees perceive you as more capable, better at your job. They like you more. And that can be, even if you're further down the totem pole, if you genuinely connect with people through laughter, they will tend to like you more and see you as more capable. And that's the key with that, though, is your intention. Is your intention to connect and lift people up? But that gets into humor that may not be so helpful, because sometimes humor can tear people down as well. So, yeah.
Well, quick story. I was at an athletics game, the A's versus the Cubs a few weeks ago. And the A's are in Sacramento for 3 years. They're playing in a minor league ballpark until they move to Las Vegas for their permanent home. So it's really nice to live in a smaller town and be able to go to a Major League Baseball game. And the beer vendor was going up and down the aisles. He yelled out, "Overpriced beer! Who wants overpriced beer?" And everybody was laughing, and people were raising their hands and buying he was just stating the obvious and making people smile, and it got our attention more than anything.
Right.
As opposed to, how much is that beer? $12. And then it creates this friction point.
Right.
He's getting that friction out from the very start, and okay, I'm a little thirsty. I guess I'll get a beer.
Right.
Well, it's interesting in using humor in the workplace. I was a CEO for 29 years, and over time, I felt like I should not be using humor. Well, I should be carefully using humor, because I found, at least with sarcasm, people didn't get my sarcasm. And for some folks, it sounded offensive. So I quickly learned that lesson when I said the wrong thing early on in my leadership career. So I minimized the sarcasm, and then just generally became confused about what humor I could use in the workplace and what I couldn't. I was just very cautious about it. So do you find people hesitating to use humor in the workplace?
Definitely. And I think that has increased over time, because I think people are a little bit more sensitive about things than they used to be. And what's okay and what isn't has changed over time. And so people do get worried about using it, both for that reason, that they might offend someone, and also that they might not be taken seriously is another reason somebody might hesitate to use humor. And the thing that people need to realize is not all humor is the same. So sarcasm is probably not the best humor to use in the workplace, because it has an edge to it that people may take the wrong way. And another type of humor that can be, depends on the circumstances, it can be good, it can be not, is people do like a teasing banter kind of thing, where they're back and forth with the banter, and it's kind of a put down humor. But if that's your sense of humor, you got to know that some people are going to take offense. And so you kind of got to read the room and know, is this the place to do that or not? Like, some guys are coworkers in a situation in a garage or whatever, and they're like, yeah.
They're bros,
and that's fine.
Right?
It's fine, right? But in certain circumstances, it may not be the right thing at all. So the key with all of it is, if you're going to use humor, I actually think you do need to be a little bit more cautious and use it strategically. I mean, that story I told earlier, he was using that strategically, and I bet you he probably had a different joke to use if it was a guy walking by. And so it's really putting some thought into it, and it's also having an awareness of the people around you and what makes them laugh.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I play golf, and generally with the people I golf with, everything that we say is sarcastic, unless we preface it by saying, "I'm serious now." So the entire day, 5 hours on the golf course, is all just one sarcastic thing after another. You're trying to distract the person so they make a bad shot, just all kinds of silly little things. But generally, we're out there to have fun. And of course, you have to make sure that you're playing with people that can accept that. And so there's a lot of this kind of put down sarcasm kind of stuff, but only with that group of 4 people.
Right.
And then if I said even one of those put downs at work, it might be a lawsuit.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to be careful.
You have to be really careful. And some people think that if somebody gets offended, it's the offended person's problem, that they're too sensitive or they don't have a sense of humor. And the truth is there are all different types of senses of humor, and you have to know what's appropriate and what isn't in any given situation. You have to have that awareness. If you're going to use humor, you need to use it well.
Yeah. What I have found is in working with a particular staff member that almost everybody has the ability, when we're working on a problem, not a problem between us, but a third party problem. We're working on a proposal or a deliverable for someone, and they get back to us with their concerns, and then I'm sitting with a staff person and we're figuring out what to do. And we can be a little sarcastic in talking about that third party. We can say, what's the matter with them? Like, why didn't they like this? Maybe we'll change the wording a little bit and they'll be okay. And that's light. It's, I put it in the category of sarcasm, and it also sort of brings us close together, me and my teammate, because we're being sarcastic about a third party and we're united together in that thought. And sometimes it's just saying out loud what we are, the problems that we're facing. I have found that to be somewhat effective in dealing with, I don't know, I call it lunatics, the lunatics that are out there.
Right.
Let's point out just quietly between us, those people are lunatics, but we still got to do this.
Right.
And then we chuckle and then we do the work. But I agree with you that you have to be really careful about.
You have to be careful how you use that
sarcasm.
even, because you don't necessarily want to use that. Like if you're doing that against somebody who's in a completely different organization or client or a lunatic, whatever. If it's somebody in your own workplace that you're doing that, you're bonding over here because you got somebody crazy over on the other end of you don't want them to hear it. You don't want to create a problem. So you just really have to be careful, and you have to think about it. So I tell you this one story. So I'm giving one of my talks on laughter in the workplace. Very often I'll have people come up to me after and say how you can't use humor like you used to anymore, right? And I had one gentleman come up to me and tell me this story of how he told a joke at the beginning of a community talk, right? And then he told me the joke. I don't remember the whole joke, but I do remember the punchline was something about putting his wife in the trunk of a car. So a woman comes up after him, irate. How dare you tell that joke? Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, don't you know I'm joking? I'm not a monster. I'm not going to actually put my wife in the trunk of a car. But he's missing the point that somebody might find that offensive. Yeah. And also, the irate person is not dealing with it in the best way possible either. If she really wanted to have an impact and going, I know you probably didn't mean to offend anybody, but you might reconsider telling that joke because, a lot of women might be offended or whatever. Like a more polite, sane way of saying it that didn't make him feel like he was a horrible person. But also, if you're the person who has offended someone and it's a relationship you care about, the important thing is to maybe listen and go, well, what did you not like about that? What bothered you? And actually listen rather than getting defensive. Defending yourself or taking it personally or telling them too sensitive or they don't have a sense of humor. Those are not the best approaches to take. The best approach is to listen if you can, and at the very least, just give a simple apology. I really didn't mean to offend you. That was not my intention. So, you have to be able to handle those kinds of situations because there's always a risk using humor. So... yeah.
How do you, I don't know if you can make sure, but how can you move in the direction and to make sure that your sense of humor doesn't offend someone? In that case, the speaker told the story, mentioned the wife in the trunk of the car. And if he was thoughtful before the presentation, is there something that he could have done a process that he could have done to look at his speech and his stories and wonder if anything was going to be offensive? Or is there a way to, assure that you're not going to offend somebody?
Well, you can't be 100% certain of that, okay? But you can put the odds in your favor. So you can just go with the obvious things like harm to another person, racism, anything that is generally offensive to bring up in company, of mixed company of all sorts of different people, anything against somebody's race or sexuality or identity is definitely a no-no. And so putting a woman in the trunk of a car, that's sort of like the old-timey comedian's humor of take my wife, please. It's sort of like, it's like an older sense of humor where that was okay. And women are maybe more sensitive now of not wanting to be having harm against women be a joke. So you just have to look at it, step back and look at it and go, is this really appropriate? And
or maybe even talk about it with somebody.
Exactly.
So that you can sort of walk through the presentation and tell a quick story and say, what do you think of this story?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Get a second opinion, third opinion. Yeah. Everybody has a different sense of humor. So you could tell somebody and they'd be like, oh God, I love that joke. And then it could still be like problematic. So you kind of have to use logic and have to step outside of what you think is funny and know that it's not about you being a stand-up comedian and being brilliantly funny. It's more about look at your intention. What's your intention of telling a joke? And yes, it is to make people laugh, but it's also like, are you lifting everybody up with that laughter or are you putting people down? And I think that that's like the real litmus test for yourself is this lifting up or is this putting down? And sometimes there may be circumstances where put downs may be appropriate, like that golf thing that you were talking about, where everybody's on the same page and everybody's doing that playful put down banter together. Or if you're bonding with a coworker and you really know that the person you're making fun of is not going to hear it, it might actually help you to work through a stressful situation together because you're dealing with somebody who's driving you nuts. So you just have to look at it. It's like you can't make a hard and fast rule about what's okay and what isn't. But it is a pretty general hard and fast rule that if it's offensive in general in the culture, then you probably don't want to do it. So, yeah.
I was giving a talk about a year ago. It was about teamwork, unrelated to stress reduction or to laughter in the workplace. And as part of the talk, I was talking about how to do icebreakers at the beginning of a meeting to help people get to know each other. And I was giving some examples of things you could ask somebody, like, what were you doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 30 years ago? And you get a little bit of history about people. And that was a fine icebreaker. And then another icebreaker idea is, where are you from? Tell me about it. And I'm interested in learning about your background. And then went on with the whole talk. Afterwards, one of the people in the audience pulled me aside in the hallway and said, I want to give you some feedback about one of those lines. When you ask somebody, where are you from? It sounds like they're not from here. Like, where are you from? And it took me a while to process this because my first thought was, you're crazy, buddy. This is not a thing. Come on. But I thought about it. And I understood that if you're in a situation, maybe you've got people from other countries who may feel like outsiders. If you emphasize that question the wrong way, they might feel like they are not welcome here. So I was giving a talk before a very mixed group of people. And I said, when you say, where are you from? That's a good way to talk about people's background and so on. But it's very important to ask that question the right way. You want to do it with an open heart. You want to do it as if you're curious and you want to know about where they're from so you can learn about it, as opposed to saying, where are you from? And designating them as an outsider. And when I said that, many people in the audience shook their head visibly. They were up and down, shaking their heads. And I thought, wow, that guy was right. Because those people maybe had that experience before where they felt like an outsider. So it's an interesting way to take feedback. I admit that when that initially happened, I wasn't open to taking the feedback. And then when I tried it, I got that positive response from it.
But yeah,
so
ultimately you did take the feedback though. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. You mentioned the person coming up to the speaker and giving feedback and maybe didn't quite do it the right way. Can you say again, what is the best way to, because we're going to be offended. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen.
Yes.
Because it's going to happen constantly. It happens everywhere and it's going to keep happening. So what is a technique for approaching people to say, that wasn't quite right, that didn't land right, or whatever it might be? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first you have to remember that that person is a human being, right? So you don't want to do the irate thing, obviously, like that woman did, and just plow into them. And unfortunately, a lot of righteous anger seems to be like people think that that's okay, and they might do it on social media or something where there's more anonymous and the person doesn't have feedback or whatever. So obviously that's a no-no. But thinking of them as a human being and really kind of getting a sense for who they are, if you have a sense of who they are, some people may never be open to the feedback, right? And so for me, the line is, how offended am I? And am I making a contribution to that person by making them aware of something that they may not be aware of about that topic? And so I think that if someone told that joke about the wife in the trunk of the car, I would probably say something like, I'm sure you had no intention of offending anyone. I just want you to know that there are some women who may be very offended by that joke. Not that they would think you would actually put your wife in the trunk of a car, but the idea of having humor about violence or being negative to women might be problematic. And I just want you to know that going forward, because I don't want you to end up in a situation where someone is irately screaming at you about it. So, but there's no hard and fast rules about that either. I think but if I had a sense that that person would not at all be open to hearing that, I may not put myself in that position of saying what I'm offended by. I think it depends on the circumstance.
Yeah. But if you do have an opportunity, then it's okay to approach somebody, as you said, as a human, calmly, and say, that thing you talked about, that
you might not be aware. You might not be
Yeah.
aware of this way people might take it, so that you're bringing them awareness, not saying they did something wrong.
Yeah. And then you've mentioned sarcasm, and we talked a bit about that, teasing and putting someone down. We talked about this as, the golf course talk, but it can also happen in the workplace. I remember a situation where I had a hallway chat, and it was all just, sort of like water cooler kind of talk. It was sort of break time, and talking with a group of my colleagues in an office. Again, I was the CEO, and I was talking with 5 people. And I think, I don't remember the exact situation, but I believe that we were talking about dress codes, something of that nature, and how we needed to we want to work comfortably, but I don't remember exactly what it was, but not with ripped jeans or ripped clothes, that kind of thing. We want to still look professional. And I said, unlike Michael over here, who wears jeans every day, or something that it was a teeny little put down, but I was expecting him to say, well, hey, just like you wearing jeans, man, or something like that.
Right.
And he said, this is important. So Michael, and I had an inkling of this, but it wasn't something that I was extremely aware. Michael was going through a divorce. He had been in a lot of counseling with his wife to try to save the marriage, and it wasn't working. And his response was, hey, I recognize what you just said. That's passive aggressive. Don't do that. And he said that in this group. Yeah. And it kind of deflated the jovialness of the group. But I had made the mistake of doing the teasing. I started it. And I also didn't understand the context of what Michael was going through personally. He was seeing a counselor with his wife, and they were talking about these issues of teasing and so on. So he was tuned up on that issue, where to me it was, hey, no big deal. You know, you're just casually all the time, something like that.
Right.
So I wasn't aware of it. And I think that was one of those moments where I decided myself, oh, drop the sarcasm, Barry, or be really careful who you talk with. And is there some kind of measure or some kind of rule for teasing, or is it just simply you got to read the room and you got to know who you're talking with?
You have to read the room.
Yeah.
And that's in work and that's in life. Like, I have some family members that are siblings. Two of them tease each other relentlessly. The third one, the sister, hates it and keeps trying to say, don't do that. Don't speak that way to me. And they ignore it and keep... and they go at each other with the teasing until somebody crosses the line and goes too far. And then they don't, then they just like storm the other direction, So it's not the best... I would say teasing is not the best thing to use unless you know the person extremely well and you know that dynamic is fun and playful and light and it'll be okay, right? That's the only situation. If it's somebody you barely know, do not. Just do not pass go, do not. So that would be the rule, is to know how well you know that person. And, you can make a guess that if they don't laugh, they respond in a way like that guy did, or they just don't respond at all, they're probably not okay with it. And maybe afterwards you need to go and do a little repair and say, hey, I'm sorry I said that in front of all those people. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings or whatever. I was just teasing around, but maybe you didn't like that. So again, put the apology in there. And there are other ways. So it's sort of like, if for a lot of people that is their sense of humor, teasing or sarcasm and stuff. And so they need to expand their humor a little bit. Sometimes it's easier to start with something like dad jokes that are so silly that everybody likes them. And that's a good way to go. Another thing you can be aware of is noticing when everybody in a group is laughing and just store it away in your brain. And then later in the conversation, look for a way to refer back to that moment, and it makes humor. It's a stand-up comedy trick called a callback. You're referring back to something that everybody already found funny, and then they'll find it funny again if you find a clever way to refer back to it. So there's different kind of tricks like that you can learn that can expand the humor repertoire beyond teasing and sarcasm. And I remember in college, there was a group of friends who we would do the teasing, and it was just so much fun to find the right zinger that would but that's not the best thing at work, especially with people you don't know well.
Yeah. So what are some ways to build positive connections? Let's say we have a client that we don't see every day and somebody that we want to work for and pay us money. How do we build a positive connection that includes laughter?
You kind of have to feel the person out and notice what their sense of humor is, because you can't necessarily try. You can try out a joke, you could try out a pun, you could try out different things. But if you sense that they're serious, I can remember one Zoom call I got on, there's a discovery call that they wanted me to come speak. They were all business, and I was like, okay, they're having me come talk about laughter, but they're not open to laughing right now. I could just feel it. So I just let it go. And so you have to feel into it and you have to know. And if it's an ongoing relationship, you can ask people questions like, have you heard any funny TV shows lately that you enjoyed watching? Or just, what are some of your favorite funny entertainments? I'm looking for something to watch this weekend. And it just starts a conversation about what that person finds funny, so you can kind of get a sense. What types of humor they like, and it can kind of give you a better sense of them. But if it's a new client, again, you might want to plan some strategic jokes, and I can't give you necessarily an example other than the one I told earlier about the Prada or the the bags, Prada or Gucci. But if you know what your sales pitch is, you might find some points where you could insert some humor And it doesn't have to be brilliant. That's the funny thing. If it's just mildly amusing, it can still build that connection and make just a smile or a chuckle is like all you're looking for. But again, it has to be, especially if you're working with a client, it has to be about lifting them up, uplifting them, not about putting down the competition or something that is negative in any way, shape, or form. And I think you probably need to be the most cautious when it's a new client that you're trying to bring on board. It can be very helpful, but you definitely don't want to tease them. You know?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that may seem like obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody. So
yeah. Yeah, that's really good advice. And stay away from politics too.
Oh God, yes.
Because it's easy to find humor in politics. I mean, you just watch the late night shows, and not everybody will get 50% of people will not like your humor. Yeah,
politics you just avoid at all costs. That's one of those. I should have listed that before when I was talking about, don't talk about harm to people, don't talk about racism, don't talk about offending somebody's identity. Politics is part of somebody's identity. So that's definitely in that category. Just stay away from it completely. So
we're talking about here is it's okay to use humor. We want to use humor appropriately. Know the room, read the room, understand who you're talking with. And when you feel like you can use either light humor, as you said, dad jokes, or maybe if you know somebody really well, you can go deeper and go full out with the kind of things that you find funny and hopefully they find funny. And by the way, the great value of dad jokes, if you want to start out a meeting, let's do some dad jokes.
Yeah.
Everybody just pull up, search for dad jokes on your phone and we'll go around and folks.
Great icebreaker. So
the goal of a dad joke, it can be funny or not funny. If it's not funny, it's still funny.
Right. Even if people are groaning and rolling their eyes, it's still interaction. It's still positive interaction. Yeah.
So that I agree. That is a good way to start. The overarching value of humor is the impact it has on health, well-being, stress reduction, and so on. Talk about that.
Yeah, so that's how I got into doing this, actually. I was facing a health challenge back in 2001, and I was having all these very scary doctor's appointments, and I ended up going to a support program that did all kinds of different therapeutic things, but one of them was we had therapeutic laughter and play every day. And I did the 2 weeks with this program, and then I went home and I'm like, okay, where's my therapeutic laughter and play today? I need it. Like, it really empowered me. It re-energized me. It brought more life force back into how I felt. It helped me so much. And I feel like, I can't say it saved my life, but I can say that it empowered me to look at the whole situation differently and to find my sense of humor again, which I had lost in the middle of all the stress that had built up to that health challenge in the years building up to that. And so when I loved it so much, I felt like I reconnected with my true self doing that. And I was just like, okay, I want to bring this to other people. And so not long after that, I saw for a training to go become a certified laughter leader. And I learned how to use laughter. In the certified laughter leader training, we learned something called laughter yoga or laughter exercise, where you're genuinely or not genuinely laughing for no reason. So, and it has the same effect on the body as genuine laughter, the fake laughter does. So it's a really powerful tool. And in that program that I attended prior to that, we played games, but we didn't keep score. So we took the competitive aspect out of it and just let the playfulness aspect be there. And it was just all about play and laughing and cracking each other up. And it was just so beautiful. I was like, I need this always in my life. And then I started going, like, one of my favorite groups that had me back several years in a row was they did an annual retreat for caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And so the caregivers would get to be away for a weekend, and they would have me come and do a laughter thing with them. And you know, they've been having the conference, they'd be having like very serious topics all the day about caregiving their loved ones. And they'd come into my room and you could just feel like the energy is really low. And then immediately it's like they lit up. And that happens whether it's a caregiver group or any group. It's like once people get to laugh, it's like life comes into their eyes and their face lights up and they're shining. And it's such a powerful experience. And so that's what kept me doing it all these years. And so I have personal experience of how it made a difference to my health and well-being. And I've seen it time and time again with the people who've come to my various different classes and workshops and conferences.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, and you're speaking and engaging with others and what you do there. But before that idea, something you just said was fascinating to me, playing a game and not keeping score. So I'll give you two quick examples that caused stress in my life recently. One is my whole family is better at playing Scrabble than I am. They're all word people, and I'm more of a numbers person, whatever. And whenever they say, let's play Scrabble, I think, well, here's another opportunity for me to lose. I'm gonna be fighting for third place, out of 4. That's it. And that's just how I see it. But if we were playing Scrabble and after every round we were just continuing to put out words, and it didn't matter how many points we were scoring. The goal was just to get all of your pieces on the table. So if you have a long word, great, you're getting rid of more of your letters. The point is that I never thought about that idea of not keeping score, just playing the game and having fun, talking about it. And then another situation I was in, I play pickleball a couple times a week, and I'm a mid-level player, but I play with a bunch of friends and neighbors. And one of our neighbors is really good. He's an A player. And he came along and he was playing this game with 3 mid-level, C players, let's call it. And he's on the team. He's the 4th person, and he's the A player. And I was thinking, Scott, can you just not hit the ball as hard? You just don't have to smash it every time. But he wouldn't. And, the score was, we finished, it was like 11-2, something like that. And it was stressful. The game was stressful. And it was, and it made me, upset wasn't the word. It was angry. It made me angry. And now I got over it pretty quickly, but even still. And then I did say something to him during the game, like, could you let the rest of us play? Something like that. I said, hey man, let the rest of us play. Something like that. But he's still 11-2. Yeah, but I noticed he came out yesterday and we were playing, and he was playing a little lighter. He read the room and he was playing a little bit lighter. Anyway, the point is, not keeping score is a really interesting idea.
It's a radical idea for some people, and some people are not willing. I have had people, family members, be like, no, I have to keep score. Right. Like they can't do it. But if you find people who are willing to not keep score and to have the purpose of the play be playing, right. Then it is magical. Like in that program I told you about when we were doing therapeutic play, like one of the things we do, we take a game that everybody plays, like Pictionary, and instead of having 2 teams and a timer with the time pressure and all that, we didn't have any of that. We were all on the same team, and one person would be drawing, and we'd all be guessing, and we'd be laughing and cracking each other up at how funny the picture was, or trying to, or same thing with charades or anything like that. Interactive games are actually better for that. Just no competition. We're all just playing. I mean, if you're sitting down to play Monopoly, people want to keep score, and Scrabble might be that case too. I don't know. But interactive games make it easier to not keep score, and they lend themselves more to playful laughter because people are being silly and acting silly. So, but yeah, it is, one of the favorite things like my husband and I like to do is like there's a game on the phone called Heads Up. It's a guessing game. Guessing games are great. Right. They're great for that. And we don't even pay attention to how many we get or don't get. The whole point of us sitting and doing it is it's a time for us to connect and de-stress from whatever our days have been, even if we just play 1 or 2 games of it. And if you engage in some laughter or a game where you're not keeping score, whatever it is, just you're doing some activity, how many of those do you need to do a day? Or is it, every other day or something?
how often is it helpful to do something like that, or just to laugh?
I think there's no limit.
Yeah.
I can't say that there's any limit. And I notice if I've gone a while without laughing, I will crave it now. And so I keep on my phone what I call my laughter list. So it's a tool, because sometimes when you're stressed out or you're frustrated or you're grumpy and you don't feel like laughing, and some people are not open to doing laughter exercise, and that's okay. It's not for everybody. So I keep a laughter list, and it's one of the techniques I share with people when I teach. And so I have them start their laughter list, and it can be their favorite funny shows, the people that they can call on the phone who always make them laugh. My best friend is the first person on my laughter list. It can be certain games you like to play, or there's certain YouTube videos that I have saved the links and put them on my laughter list so that I can watch the Mary Tyler Moore show's Chuckles the Clown sequence and laugh. I mean, it's just like certain things I know make me laugh every time I watch them, whether, I've seen them before or not. And so if it's something like that, it goes on my laughter list. And that way, if you're feeling down and you really don't feel like laughing, but a laugh would do you some real good, you just pull up your laughter list. And I like to keep on my phone, because my phone's always with you.
Sure.
But you can keep
what
a list
anywhere. What a great
anywhere.
idea.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I'm going to start a laughter list.
Yeah, definitely
absolutely.
start a laughter list. And it's a fun thing when I do groups, then we have people start their laughter list, and then I have them compare laughter lists and give each other ideas for things to add to their laughter list. So, yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you speak about laughter, you speak about stress and a variety of topics. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the one I've been doing the longest is, you would call it laughter and stress relief, or laughter for health and well-being, depending on who I'm talking to. And it's basically very interactive, and it teaches people laughter exercise. First, it teaches them the value of it, because everybody goes, yeah, I like to laugh. But they don't necessarily realize how much they don't laugh in day-to-day life. And throughout the exercises, I usually have them just stop and pause and take a deep breath and notice how they're feeling. And we do that before they start. And then we keep doing that as we do things, so that they have the evidence in their own body, in their own mind, in their own thoughts, that they can see, oh my God, that made a difference, because sometimes you need to just pause and go, okay, how was I feeling? How am I feeling now? What were my thoughts then? What are my thoughts now? And it is so amazing. And then what always happens, because what laughter does is it builds connections between people. The minute we start doing the laughter exercise, I actually have to do my workshops with a whistle if I ever want to get their attention back, because the minute they start doing these activities together, they start talking and connecting. And it just happens every time. And so at the beginning, I'm like, this is my whistle. You have to listen for my whistle. And that means it's time to move on to the next thing, because I want to get to everything, But it is just fun to see people, at conferences. Sometimes people go to a conference and they don't hardly know anybody, or I love it when I do my workshops and they're sitting around circular tables, and they get to know the other people around their table who maybe they never met before, that they're at the conference. They've made a new friend, because they've laughed together and shared their laughter lists and done some other activities together. They feel like they know each other instantly. So it's like instant connection. I think the comedian Victor Borger said the shortest distance between two people is a laugh. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's great. So I have a dad joke.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I have a really smart dog. I asked him yesterday, what's 2 minus 2? He said nothing. Anyway, that's
there
my
you
dad
go.
joke.
Perfect. Perfect.
And smart dog.
What did the donut say to the loaf of bread?
What?
If I had that much dough, I wouldn't be hanging around this hole. Silly.
Very good.
Silly.
Silliness. Yes, and we just chuckle. Yeah. But I feel better.
Yeah. Instantly. It's an instant thing. Yeah.
Well, Kim, we'll put links to find you in the show notes. And I really appreciate this conversation. It's been so insightful in learning about laughter in the workplace, but also laughter as stress release, and the importance of doing it, and the importance of appropriate laughter in the workplace.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to Kim McIntyre for being our guest today. And thank you for listening. If you want to get in touch, or if you have an interesting topic and know someone you think would be a great guest on the show, send me an email at barry@barrymoline.com. And please leave a 5-star review, which helps others find their way to the Great Ideas Podcast.